Hello, Tom T. Moore. I am very excited to have you here. Um, I've waited a couple of weeks since we first contacted for your schedule to open up to have you. You are an author of several books. You taught me how to use the MBO and ask for the most benevolent outcome. And I'd love to have you introduce yourself to whoever's watching.
Okay, sure. I'm the author of 6 books. My Gentle Way series of books I was voted best self-help author for 3 years in a row by the readers of a health magazine. I'm also the CEO of a small international film and TV program distribution business. So all of this kind of keeps me busy. I put out a weekly free newsletter. I've done over 850 of these through the years that are all archived on my website at www.thegentlewaybook.com. And it even has a search box on the articles and news page where you can search topics and see if I've asked questions. I've asked over 30,000 questions. 99.5% of them have been sent to me by the readers of my weekly newsletters, which are free, my gift to the world. So that's
That is
where I
wonderful.
am, and we can go way back in time or whatever you wish to talk about today.
So for several weeks, I have been looking at your website, your newsletter in particular, and there is so much there. And my thought was, I don't want to ask him any questions like double up on the questions. And I was like, I don't think there's no way that I could go through all of that. So, and so many of the questions were answered, even though I did use the search bar.
Yep.
And I found myself searching a lot for Mary Magdalene and Jesus and that history. Would you like to talk about that? And I just came back from France, from southern France
Oh, the
I
Riviera.
saw that you went there too. The Riviera, we could say the
Yeah.
Riviera or Mary Magdalene's
Yeah.
hood.
25 years. Uh, I I went to Cannes for uh, for film and TV markets, so I'm very familiar with that area. I love the area. So yes, and of course uh, they do have a statue in one small town, which I forget the name of, on the
St.
Riviera.
Balm,
Hmm?
maybe? Okay, go ahead.
uh, I'm sorry, can't remember the name, that celebrates them coming to France later on. So that's very, very pleasant place to go to. Everybody in the restaurants, 99% speak English and Italian and Spanish, and they deal with a lot of international clients.
So did you go to France for any Mary Magdalene
No,
pilgrimage or the history over there? It was just for your
just for
film
business. Yeah,
business.
yeah,
Okay.
and so that's they have a lot of history on that part of the Riviera. I did discover that one of my soul cluster members, meaning that um, my soul has 8 fragments of itself that are having lives on Earth. Not all of them at the same time, but I did find out there's a lady that does psychic readings in St. Paul de Vence, but I didn't know that until after I stopped going to Cannes. Otherwise, I might have tried to look her up because I've been to there several times. They have this gorgeous restaurant in St. Paul de Vence that I used to try and go to once per trip. It was that good.
Yeah, it really was very special. So I'd love to ask you about Southern France and the information that you get on Mary Magdalene. And when you said when they arrived, who was they?
Well, now see, this is going to be perhaps one of the more controversial things that we'll talk about. Um, uh, Typically, I like to get into MBOs and benevolent prayers, but I was told um, long ago, years ago, that Herod did not want to make Jesus a martyr, and so he banished him and his family, which was Mary Magdalene and their 4 children, out of Jerusalem. And they traveled to India and stayed there for a year or so, and then came back to the coast and took a ship that went around the Mediterranean. And finally, they got off in France, and that's where they wound up settling from there, going from there. I never found out exactly, but there is a statue, I think, of a baby uh, in
Yeah.
in one of the places there. I haven't had the chance to go to that particular town. So anyway,
Well, that
that's
is
my.
controversial, but I feel like it's getting less controversial
Mhm.
these days because things are starting to make sense, and her gospels are out. I have a book by Megan Watterson that
Yeah.
started me on this, and going to her cave, seeing all of the images, the stained glass images in cathedrals, the Gothic cathedrals. I've also been to Glastonbury, Stonehenge, Avebury. All of these places have images of, and they're not symbols,
Mhm.
symbols, all of Mary Magdalene and Jesus, not Jesus and the Blessed Mother. It's all of them, plus Joseph of Arimathea. And so seeing
Mhm.
those things for myself really made me look at it in a different way, and then started me researching.
Right.
So
Yeah.
thank
Keep
you
in
for
mind.
being willing.
Sure. In 325 to 327 AD,
Mhm.
Constant, no, let's see, uh, King Constantine, whatever his name was, sorry,
Yep,
in Turkey.
Constantine. Yeah,
Uh,
you got it.
yeah, uh,
Yeah.
called 300 priests, bishops, cardinals from both the Catholic Church and the Greek Orthodox to Nicaea. And for 2 years, they voted on what their beliefs would be. And they wanted to establish a patriarchy. Uh, and and so if there was anything about Mary Magdalene, they kind of wanted to make her be like a prostitute, and that wasn't the case. Uh, Jesus and Mary had a very loving relationship, and which again produced 4 children, one a girl, and so uh, that's how I was told it actually happened, and and not what these people, and I actually had a life at that time. I actually attended the council. Now, who knows whether that was one of my good life uh, uh, lives or a bad life, but I was there, um, and uh, I guess to see what was going on. So, um, but in my um, in my thousands of questions, I learned that I was Salome, the uh, the mother of James and John, and one of Jesus's female disciples. So,
Yeah.
so I was there when Jesus was alive on earth.
From what I understand, we who are interested in uncovering the truth, and
Mhm.
like I get really down deep in this, and you obviously are too, answering all of these questions for free, which a lot of people don't do. Like, listen, if you want to get information, book a session, then maybe you write a book or whatever, but this is your life's mission. This is your work, if
It's
you
my soul
will,
contract,
your soul contract. Okay.
right?
Another way to put it, and I say, well, this is my work. That doesn't mean that you and I are more important than other people. This is just our assignment. And
Yeah.
it feels to me, and the messages that I'm getting is, we are supposed to uncover the truth and the history, and not relive, but relearn and embody the lessons from our past lives,
Mhm.
because they were important.
Yes. And that's one of the nice things about being
Just
able.
check in. Just check in with you. You're like the boss. So I want to make sure I'm on the right track.
Well, that's one of the major, another thing on my soul contract this time around is that I'm supposed to encourage people to meditate. Okay. Now, uh, what I do, how I ask these questions in a meditative state, anyone that's watching this can do the very same thing, because every single one of us have the pineal gland in the back of our heads, also known as the chakra, I think, in Hindu religion, but it's this little tiny ball-looking thing when I see it in
Yeah.
drawings, and it
Yep.
acts as an antenna for every type of telepathic thought packets, thoughts, feelings,
Downloads
you name
in
it.
general.
Okay,
Yeah. Yeah.
and all you have to do, now, there are channels. I don't consider myself a channel. In fact, my publisher of my book says, "You're not a channel, Tom. You ask your own questions." Well, a channel, typically
Right.
steps aside and another being comes in and talks, and they don't have anything to say about it. I have all this list of questions. Uh,
Yeah.
this is coming up on Saturday, as you can see. Um,
Wow. You handwrite them. Interesting. Okay.
yes, and uh,
Yeah.
as I see them
I do it the
from,
old school way too.
yeah. So I have these, and when I do a meditative session, it's typically I do it like at 3:30 in the morning on Saturday mornings, sometimes on Sunday too, if I have a lot of questions. And I will simply put myself using a breathing technique into a light meditative state, and then I start asking to speak to whomever I wish to. Uh, I suggest typically that people, if you start doing this, to ask to speak to your own guardian angel who loves you dearly and protects you. These are actually golden light beings that are whole souls, but very, very ancient whole souls that glow a golden light because they've raised their vibrational level to the point where they glow this light. So they're able to take care of hundreds of thousands of people all at the same time. And the same guardian angel will take care of you in all of your lives on earth, which are all going on at the same time. So, okay.
Yeah.
So, um,
We won't go
back
down
to,
that whole, we'll save that one for the next time we meet, because I have a lot to say about that
yeah, yeah.
too. They're teaching me about that.
Yeah, although I will say, if anyone wants to start trying to do this, um, uh, if anyone has heard of Dick Sutphen, Sutphen, he has hypnotized over 300,000 people. He's no longer alive, but you can go to Amazon and and look up his spirit guides, and it, they have them in audio now. They used to have them on CD, but I don't believe they do anymore. And you can listen to those. It puts you in perfectly, keeps you safe, and you can start asking questions on your own. So there's a way to get
Interesting.
into
Okay.
this for beginners. Okay. So,
Thank you.
um,
Okay.
but the way that I started all this was that uh, um, I I was reading a channeled article by Robert Shapiro um, back in the late 90s, somewhere. I
Yeah.
forgot how long ago. And he was channeling a creator being by the name of Zosh. Now, I've since talked to Zosh. Zosh is like a creator understudy. He's
Hmm. Can you
he's
spell that?
studying, pardon?
Can you spell that?
Zoosh, I believe. Zosh.
Interesting. Okay.
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 He's so he's learning about uh, he's learning all he can in this universe. So he's an understudy, sort of like a, what do you call it when somebody works for free? a
Oh, an apprentice or an
an
intern.
apprentice, yes, intern.
Okay. Yep.
And so Zos told Robert, he said, you can request benevolent outcomes in your life. And I said, well, that's really interesting because I've been trying the law of attraction and that wasn't working very well. You know, I mean, really tried, but it just wasn't working. So I kept looking. And so when he mentioned that, I said, okay. And so I started requesting benevolent outcomes and sort of unknowingly, but pushed or whatever, I started doing them out loud. Now, you have to say these out loud unless you cannot speak, and then you need to write them. Okay, so that's where the human voice. Scientists will one day in the future, again, you know, there's so many things that that we still have to learn. And some people say, "Oh, prove this by science." They act like, well, maybe the scientists should all pack up their bags and go home. We've learned everything we're going to learn, and that's not
Right.
the case. They're going to learn in the future. The power of the human voice is extremely powerful. And when you say, "I request a most benevolent outcome for the perfect job," or "I've request a most benevolent outcome for the perfect home," or "I request a most benevolent outcome for the perfect mate." Now, these are all biggies, I call them. I I suggest that people start with small stuff. I request a most benevolent outcome for my drive, as I did today to Sprouts, and I request a most benevolent outcome for getting everything I need at Sprouts and getting home in time to go for my massage. And I request the most
Yeah.
benevolent outcome for my massage to be even better than I can hope for or expect. So these are mundane requests that you can do that get immediate feedback because these big ones, the biggies as I call them, they take time. Maybe if you're looking for the perfect man for you, as I you have to understand 75% or so of the readers of my newsletter are women. And it, and so you have to be patient. Maybe that person is in a relationship and that they have to get out of. Maybe you need another relationship to prepare you for that perfect one. So there are all sorts of machinations that have to go in.
Mhm. And
That
trusting that
job
it's
has to
going
be
to
hired by
happen.
another company. Yeah. So there's so many things that have to happen. So you have to be patient and just
Mhm.
let it start rolling out, and you'll start seeing things happening that will be of benefit to you. So that's MBOs. MBOs are specifically for you. Now you get into other people, animals, countries, it, and those are benevolent prayers. And you say it a little differently because these prayers are handled by about a little over 1 million souls that handle all the prayers on earth. And I asked Theo, my guardian angel, I said, well, are they, um, you know, are they old souls like you? And he said, no, but he says they're eager. Okay, so
They're
that's
eager,
that's how he
waiting
does.
for us to ask.
Yeah. And so when you say that, you say, I ask, now this is what I came up with so that anyone of any religious beliefs, whatever they happen to be, could say these benevolent prayers together and it wouldn't conflict with with you know, asking a deity, whether it be God or Allah or Jesus or
Right,
so
right.
on.
And it
And
doesn't conflict with your sole purpose. So I remember reading your newsletter, or maybe it was on another interview. And they said, well, listen, we can ask for the law of attraction that I want to live in a millionaire mansion in
mhm,
California, right? Because
mhm.
some people will say you need to be specific if you want this or if you want that. Um,
Well, yeah, now that's a benevolent outcome. Yes. Okay.
right? But if your sole contract is not to be a millionaire, to
Right.
not go to California, first of
Right.
all, maybe it won't work, or does it work, but it takes you off of your path? How does that
Now,
work?
when you request a benevolent outcome, it's uh, if it's in your soul path, okay, if it's on your soul contract, you'll get it. But as an example, I can give a biggie from years ago. I
Okay.
have a friend living in Paris who, believe it or not, actually used to live a block from where I used to live uh, here in the Dallas area, but before I lived there, and he sailed a boat around the world, wound up going up the Seine River and docked
Wow.
and met a French lady who was a professor, and they wound up getting married. So but he was also a filmmaker, and that's where I came in because I distributed a couple of his movies, starring Stacy Keach, and so so he had a friend that had the rights to several of an English writer's books by the name of Cheney that were written in World War II, and they were spy novels. And so he and I set out to raise money to do a series of these lower budgeted spy movies. And I went all over the place: Budapest, St. Petersburg, Russia, uh, Milan, Cannes, American Film Market, you name it. And I was trying to hit up people to fund these movies. And every time we would get close, something really weird would happen that it would fall
Yeah.
apart. And so finally, I'm asking Theo. I said, Theo, I've been requesting benevolent outcomes on this project, and it keeps falling through. And he said, Tom, he said, had you gone down that path, you would never reach the number of people that you're going to reach with your books and newsletters and all. So that's it didn't happen.
Right. I just had an Akashic reading session with a lovely, I want to say young woman. She's younger than me. Maybe other
Mhm.
people wouldn't consider young, but she's younger than me. And they gave me an image of like these steps, these long, deep steps. And I said, it looks like on each of those steps, you were there for a short time and learned what you needed to learn so that you could go to the next step. But
Mhm.
each of those to you and to the outside world looked like a failure. But when you get to the top of those steps, you're going to look down and look back down at where you've been. And every single step was necessary. There was no skipping to get to what you're going to end up doing up here. You need all those skills. So I think that's what you're saying, is to kind of trust that any failure you needed. That's the most
Yes.
difference between the
No,
most benevolent outcome and the law of attraction is just give
They'll,
me what I
they'll,
want.
they'll keep you on the path as long as you're
Yeah,
requesting benevolent outcomes. And you can also say, I
yeah.
request the most benevolent outcome to stay on my soul contract my whole life. Thank you. And you will.
Okay.
It'll,
So
it'll
is
be
the
like
converse true? Can you
what?
say, what is the most benevolent outcome? Or can you ask, what is my soul contract?
No, I don't I don't know my soul contract or the rest of it. I mean, obviously, I've gotten quite a bit of it, and they kind of, even though I'm not supposed to know my soul contract, they kind of give little suggestions here and there.
Yeah,
You just have to listen to those whispers in your ear, and it'll keep you on your soul contract. So, and that's what you want to do, because that you and your soul decided that this soul contract is the best for you, for the best challenges, the best successes. Yeah, everything is best. If you get off your soul contract, then you've got to uh, your soul knows that this could happen, and your soul has a whole set of new challenges and everything, but they're not as good as they would have been had you stayed on your original soul contract.
right. So there's a big thing about cutting cords, cord cutting. Have you gotten any questions about cord cutting? Or does that
Regarding
phrase?
what?
Okay,
Hmm?
so people will come a lot, and I have this on my list of modalities or things that I'll do for people is cord cutting. And I often, so if they're in a relationship with a person and they're kind of, it's a more toxic relationship, and somebody says, I think that there's this cord and it's pulling me away.
Oh, okay. Um, you can say on cord cutting, you can say,
Yep.
I request the most benevolent outcome to sever any energy cords that are not in my best interest at this time. Thank you. And it'll cut them. So that's especially important. Uh, if someone is in a very abusive
Right.
uh, contract or circumstances and so on. So that's how you can do it. Now, let's go back. We didn't cover benevolent prayers quite thoroughly enough, if you don't mind.
I don't.
Benevolent prayers are what you say for other people and animals and countries and everything. So you say, I ask any and all beings. And you notice I'm not saying dear God or dear Allah or whatever. I'm
Yeah.
just, but it still has the same power. And the more people that say the exact same prayer, as an example, you could say, I ask any and all beings to protect the people of Gaza from harm. Thank you. And if everyone said that same one, it's a crescendo of energy that it creates. It's not like one or two people said it. It'd be, if 10 people said it, it'd be almost like 100 people saying that prayer. It really has a crescendo effect.
Those are the messages that I've been getting too, and the most benevolent outcome, I think, is the final seal of the deal for me. Like, this is how you're supposed to do it. That group prayer. So each week I host an Akashic Records,
Mhm.
and that's a prayer. Sometimes I don't
Right,
use that phrase. We open up the records together, but what we're all doing as a group is getting information for us and for humanity that is the most benevolent outcome.
right. And if you
Yeah.
notice in my weekly newsletters, I've got a prayer for the people of Gaza and Israel and all. I've got a prayer for the people of Ukraine. I've got a prayer to say to help um, overcome things that you've done not only in this life, but in the past lives and future lives. So you say, I ask any and all beings to come to the aid and comfort of anyone that I've ever harmed, either physically, mentally, morally, spiritually, or emotionally in any past, present, or future life. And I ask that any and all beings come to the aid and comfort of the families and friends of anyone that I've ever harmed in any way in any past, present, or future life. Thank you. I say that every single morning, okay? Because Theo says that when I say that, because all these other lives I'm having on earth are all going on at the very same time, that prayer reaches every single one of those lives. And it will make certainly all my future lives on earth easier by saying that the challenges or the balancing I have to do will be less severe than if I had not said that prayer every morning. So, and he said, Tom, you will have doubts, but he says, I guarantee that this absolutely is something that you should say. So, and you can find that prayer on my website, www.thegentlewaybook.com, and in the menu, click on signs, and there's all sorts of signs you can print out.
Wonderful. I love that. And to make sure I put your information, the website and everything in the description box below. And okay. I remember Googling you though, Tom Moore, and I needed to do Tom T. Moore.
Yes.
That's important.
Because there's lots of other Tom Moores, even a couple of Tom Moores that have written books.
Ah, yes. So Tom T. Moore and The Gentle Way. And it sure is a real comprehensive, effective umbrella prayer to get the most bang for your buck, if for lack of a better term.
Yeah. These very powerful prayers, and I didn't know about them till I was told. So
right. And it's funny, I didn't ask you in the beginning when you said, well, I've asked these questions, I've been told. People might be assuming you're talking to your guardian angel, but who are you asking? You have a whole bunch of non-physical beings you speak with.
Right. That's one of the nice things about doing what I do, and why I encourage everyone to do it, is because you're not limited. The people that channel typically only have 1, 2, 3 beings that they typically go to. I'm not saying everyone is like that, but that's quite often. Where in these meditative sessions, in one session I might talk to Gaia, soul of the earth, Theo, my guardian angel, octopus soul. I'm trying to think.
And creator. You had creator?
And creator.
I think I saw it.
Jesus,
yeah. Okay.
And King Oberon and Queen Titania of the fairy kings, who keep telling me, Tom, humans don't believe in us, but we exist, and we've been here millions of years, and we're going to be here millions of years after the Earth experiment, and you all go home to your own planets. So you can. I've talked to Sun Soul, Moon Soul, the soul of Mars, who's looking forward to our explorer astronauts coming to Mars. Just lots of different people.
Now, what do they tell you about the changes coming to the United States as far as Earth changes? Do they prepare you for those changes?
Well, Gaia keeps telling me, move away from the coast. She says, I'm going to have a lot more flooding. She's been telling me this for years. And I'm going to have a lot more flooding. Hurricanes for this hurricane season, there's going to be, I think she said, 9 hurricanes of which several will hit the United States. But she said, don't forget, it doesn't have to be a hurricane to be very destructive. It can be, look at what happened to Houston recently. They had a,
Yeah.
excuse me, a rainstorm that just sat on them and flooded almost as bad as Harvey did. So
Right.
we're, get away from the coast, move away from the coast. She wants the coast to be pristine, and she said it will be before too long. Wonder what that means.
Right. Before too long, for sure.
Yeah.
I'm getting the same. Well, a lot of us, I think, are getting the same, as the coasts of the United States are really just, the message that I got was the water would overtake the land. So,
Well, as
I
the
don't know
oceans,
when, they don't say
yeah,
that, but
as the oceans rise, don't forget, any hurricane, instead of just affecting the coast, will go deeper and deeper inland. And
right.
and they just had a story on the news in the past week or so, where it talked about how people are starting to leave Florida. Um, one, because of the weather, with all these hurricanes and everything. Also, political reasons. They're
Right.
tired of you know the politics of Florida. So whatever it takes to get them out of there, I think they'll be happy they did.
Okay. So I've been getting that Florida will still be there, which
Yeah, yeah,
shocked me. What do you
they'll
mean? Yeah.
still be there, but there will be less coastline. It'll be smaller, but it'll still be there. It's just
Okay.
that the flooding will be worse in these hurricanes and storms and that.
Yeah. Okay. Because that made me doubt. I'm like, everyone said that Florida is just going to be gone,
We
and I
no
was thinking,
longer know that what
right.
I'm
And
told.
I
Yeah.
said, that's not what I saw. And I saw it very, very clearly coming down the middle of the United States and then the coastlines. Um, uh, you know, that's what I saw. So that is very interesting about Gaia. And I also am not afraid, and you aren't afraid either. Just this is kind of what we signed up for here,
Yep.
to help spread the word. Don't be afraid. And there are so many messages that we've gotten, and that I believe now, especially doing past life regressions with people. And part of that is to watch their soul go back to its origin, to source. And there isn't pain in dying unless it is in your soul contract.
Yep.
Are you
True. I
getting
mean,
that too?
I've had some bad deaths. I'm a really old soul. I've had some very unpleasant deaths and caused some too. So
And people
that's
don't realize that we're the devil, and not maybe not the devil, but we're here for experiences.
mm,
And if we signed up to be on the other side, that's what we got. On
yeah.
the other side of goodness, we experienced it all.
Yep. And I'm told that we have to have an equal number of bad guy lives with good guy lives. And they liken it to a theatrical production where in one production you're the villain, and the next the hero, and the next one of the cast members.
Right.
So
Right. Or a backdrop person.
yeah, that's the background players
Yeah.
in the movie. So
Yeah. The background players. And, understanding that has helped me more than anything, I think, to help me have non-judgment. I
mhm.
couldn't have non-judgment without looking at it like that. I was going to say without understanding this is the way it is. And this is, of course, just what I think based on my experience. But it helped me. It makes sense to me. in the large scheme of things, that we're here to learn by experience. And I haven't learned anything the easy way. I don't think most of us do. So that's kind of
I know.
the way it is, right?
And,
So,
in my case,
yeah.
I was told that because of what's coming up for me, um, that I needed to learn international film
Mhm.
ground up because I'd never had a life in the past where I'd been in film distribution. And so I literally started at the bottom. I was um, uh, I, I went out and found films shot on 16 millimeter that would be like Nail Gun Massacre or Thursday Morning Murders or whatever. I mean,
Jeez.
really, Night Fright with John Agor. Uh, and uh, these and so I was taking these films, and the guys were saying, "Well, how much do you charge to take these films to a market?" And I said, "Nothing." You know, we had recently sold our international wholesale tour company, and I could still travel for next to nothing, because I was on contract as an advisor to the company that bought us, and so I was traveling standby first class, all over the world, and so that's how I started out with all these low budget horror movies, and some of
Part
which
of your
there
training.
was there was one I had to step outside the room when I was showing the preview of it because it was so bad. But I'm glad I don't have too many of those anymore.
I feel like that so much lately. I'm in my 50s and I look back at all the experiences. I'm like, I think in this lifetime, like the really grueling lessons are behind me. I like to think
Mhm.
that. I like to think that I'm not going to be protected from hurt too much, but the lessons that I've learned moving forward will kind of carry me through the rest of my years. I feel like that's what you're kind of saying too.
Yeah, because I've got a biggie project coming up, and I just keep
In this
waiting.
lifetime,
Yeah, so we'll I just keep waiting and see when it's going to happen.
you have a big project coming in this lifetime,
Yeah.
and they have told you what it is. Can you
Oh yeah.
reveal or no?
Well, it's in my book, First Contact: Conversations
Oh,
with the
okay.
ET. Good reason to read.
Yeah. And buy your book. You give away a lot of things for free. And people are saying, oh well, I can hear the people and well, he just wants to sell his book or he wants to whatever. Like, do you go to work? Do you get a paycheck? This is it. This is the
And all the
payoff.
questions regarding it are in my newsletters. You just have to do a lot of hunting.
Yeah. Okay. So what is the book that has that information in it? Which of your several books?
First Contact: Conversations with an ET. I mean, it's
First
on.
contact conversations with an ET in this
Yeah,
lifetime. Okay.
yeah, and that's somebody I mentioned, forgot to mention earlier. Antura is my soul buddy. He's part of my soul cluster, and Theo introduced him to me in 2008, and I was at the time. We were talking about some ruins on the other side of the world, and he said, there's an ET that's going to show those to you one day. And I said, oh, he said, yeah, he's listening in right now. Well, I was shocked. I thought I was having a personal conversation with my own guardian angel, and I found out it was a party line, as they used to call it years
Yes.
ago,
Yes, I remember that. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
where
So
anybody
funny.
listen. And he said, "Well, don't worry." He said, "It's all done out of love." So I was like, okay. And so he said, "Would you like to talk to him?" And I said, let me think of some questions." And so a couple of weeks later, I started talking to him and
Yeah.
went on from there. Hundreds and hundreds of questions.
it is another lesson that I learned when, it was about injustice. I was feeling very, very abandoned, the dark night of the soul. This is how we feel, like we are by ourselves fighting the good fight. It is so unjust and unfair, and the betrayals are just stacking up. And I finally found my shaman, Zach Alexander, and he's like, everything is seen. Everything will work out. Justice will be served. You might not know, and then we had the conversation of, you have done these things. That's kind of what the karma is. It all has to be balanced. It's not punitive or a punishment, but they're watching.
Yeah.
and that was another lesson that I had to learn that
And your
helps me.
souls have very unique ways of balancing sometimes. In my case, back in World War I was a young German soldier that died early in the First World War, but before then I'd killed, the enemy, and so in this life I experienced congestive heart failure, and I said, why did that happen? And Theo said, Tom, he said, yes, it was your job to kill the enemy in that war, but at the same time, you brought heartache and grief to the families and friends of those people that you killed, and so this is how you're balancing, and that's how that prayer that I say every morning came about. It originated from me finding out that information. I said, well, if I say a prayer for those people, and he said, that would be fantastic. He said, you, in all your lives on earth, this is the first life that you've ever done this. So.
Perfect. Now I'm looking at the time, and I know that your wife is waiting for you. You guys have lots of things to do. Do you think that you could offer a prayer to all the listeners here?
Well,
What would you
as
say?
I mentioned before, you need to say, I request a most benevolent outcome to stay on my soul contract for the rest of my life. That puts you on the path. If you've been off the path a little bit, there may be some challenges to get you back on the path, but
Right. We have to expect those.
yeah, but
Yeah.
it just all depends on how far you've gone off the path. But you need to try and say that, and your own guardian angels will do their best to put you on that track and keep you on that track, and not have you taking a path that would be less beneficial for this life. So that's one of the first things. And then, of course, do say that prayer. Go to my website and uh, you know, under signs, print out that prayer and say that prayer for the people that you've harmed, either in this life or past lives or future lives, and it will make a difference in all of your lives to come. So
Thank you so much for taking the time talking
sure.
to us. And it also feels very much like, and we said a prayer for it before this, that
Yep.
Everyone who is watching this is on their soul journey. And if they need to get back, they have been led to this, and reach out to Tom or I, and would be happy to share our information
And sign up for my
and
newsletter.
help.
It's
Sign up
free.
for, yeah, and sign up for the free newsletter too, and the book. So thank you so much. I am so grateful, Tom, to have this time with you.
Sure. Thank you for having me. Good luck,
My
everybody.
pleasure. Thank you.